the biggest game of the week, the most impactful game of the week. You've got the winner will be the 2 seed. The loser will be 6 seed, or the Bills could be out of it altogether. The Bills could be gone altogether. If the Jaguars beat the Titans and the Steelers beat the Ravens, who are going to lay down. And I see a lot of people saying the Ravens should lay down because it's better to get the Bills out than the Steelers. I disagree with that. I still think you don't want this. You don't want a division rival in the playoffs ever if you can avoid it. But that's the game. That's the one with the highest stakes of all of the games that are coming up this weekend. Bills-Dolphins. Bills could be anywhere from 2 seed to going home. That's just amazing to have that much of a swing.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge football game. And as you've said, I mean, the Bills are certainly one of the best teams in football right now. To think that they can't be in the playoffs possibly with a loss this weekend would be incredible, right? I would err on more on, I mean, even, if I'm Baltimore, I would still rather see Pittsburgh in the playoffs than see Josh Allen and Buffalo in that group there. But I understand your point. It's scary nonetheless with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat Baltimore this year once already, right, in Pittsburgh. Now, I mean, Baltimore dominated the football game, and that was the game they dropped like 3 or 4 touchdown passes and probably 150-plus yards of passes. But still, it's scary. And we know about that, common division opponent where they know your tricks and they know how to stop and play you certain ways that other teams won't. So that I hear that. But man, this game, this got all the billings of greatness on Sunday night. It really does. Of course we got a Miami Dolphins offense and team that is very talented, but certainly not as high flying as we thought it was early in the year. Right? We've seen defenses have figured out a little bit how to defend them here, especially the good ones, the ones with defensive coaches who can think outside the box a little bit and, of course, have a little talent to go with it, right? Miami all of a sudden seems pretty ordinary when they have to play those type of defenses, and that's what Buffalo is. They're coming to town. Defensive head coach, they're pretty healthy. Miami's offense has struggled against teams that have a good front four, and they make the game ugly like we've talked about a little bit. You take away the screens, right? You take away the little pop slants that we saw early on in the game by the Miami Dolphins, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, so what else is there in the offense? What else are you going to do? Tua doesn't throw deep out routes or comebacks or anything like that. So, that's where it's going to be fun to watch. And then, I mean, we could break down the other side of the ball in a minute, but Buffalo's offense certainly not high-flying right now either. And that'll add to, the intrigue in the matchup as well.
And one of the realities, and I guess it's fitting in a season where so many quarterbacks have been injured, both quarterbacks are on the injury report. They fully participated in practice yesterday. Tua Tagovailoa for the Dolphins will start there. He's got the lingering quadriceps injury. The thumb injury is off the report, but the left shoulder was on there as well. Now, in the aftermath of Sunday's game, Tua says he's good, it's sore, he's fine. Mike McDaniel, head coach, Monday said he's fine. Here's Tua from yesterday talking about that left shoulder injury he suffered in Baltimore.
Tua, how's your shoulder feeling? Is it kind of limiting you in any way? How are you feeling?
My shoulder's good, brother. It's all good. Thank you.
And we saw on Hard Knocks you were complaining about inflammation maybe on the thumb. It was bruised.
They show that. Everyone has the nicks and bruises at this point of the season. So, that's not an excuse for me. But that's what was going on, so...
Yeah. I think they do get numb to the presence of the cameras and the microphones.
Yeah, I think they're there.
Where you don't even realize it. And that makes the editing process even more important. He may have had a little consternation there over the fact that they didn't leave that on the cutting room floor. And Tua is the one player who's been the most sensitive about this notion of opening their lives. And you see him in there a lot, and you wonder how sensitive he is to the presence of the cameras based upon how he's acting, what he's saying, what he's doing. But that might be one that he wishes they weren't as open about. Because one thing I've noticed in watching Hard Knocks, he suffered that weird gash on his arm that looked like somebody bit a chunk out of it. And it was, remember how what in the world? It's not even bleeding. What is that?
Yeah.
And it's been patched. 1 week it was patched, 1 week it wasn't. That has never been mentioned once on Hard Knocks. Not a single time. I mean, for such a rare, fluky, strange thing that was so visually jarring. For that to not be mentioned once, that's just more evidence of how the teams involved in this do have a lot of power over what gets talked about and what doesn't. And it suggests that Tua just didn't want anyone talking about it.
Well, I don't think it's that crazy. Everybody else on the football team's got chunks of skin missing too. It's just weird when we see the quarterback. So that would be a little bit of like what I would throw back at you there.
You rarely see somebody's arm that looks like a leopard came up out of nowhere and bit a piece out of his bicep. You rarely see that.
Yeah, I listen, you don't see it a lot of quarterbacks. If you went around a locker room and saw linemen and some linebackers, they're going to have parts where you're going to go, man, I don't think his skin's ever going to grow back the same there or on his thigh or on his leg. Like, it's going to grow back, and he's going to have a weird scar there the rest of. I have a few of those where, hey, cleats, a face mask, right, where they screw the face mask in. It can be a little sharp. You can get chunks kind of ripped out of your skin at times where you're like, what the hell? You got a cleat that steps on your leg, right? So that can happen. But, like, to your point still, I mean, yeah, they don't want to share everything that's out there. They don't. And listen, the thumb thing and what he had there, it wasn't that big of a deal. He was going around talking to the coach, right? They were gauging it a little bit. But either way, Tua's got to play better than he did last week. We know that. And Miami's got a big challenge in front of them this week. Again, we've seen here with Miami, like I said, you take away a few of those tricks, they struggle. What's the next move for Miami? What are they going to do, right? You know, what if once like the Bills take away the screens and the throws down the middle, right, to Tyreek, where we see them play action and boom, real quick, how they got a few plays in the first half of that game against the Ravens. Okay, the Ravens saw it 3 or 4 times. Then that 4th time, what happened? Oh, pick. Roquan Smith down the middle, same type of route. What was the second interception? Right down the middle, 7 people, right all over there. He was trying to fit it in. So that's where I worry about the Miami Dolphins, is you could play them to areas right now. And the one thing I look about them with Mike, that I look at them and go, like, this is one area where they could be better at. And the stats will even show you that. And you know me, I'm not always about, the stats, right? There's context in stats. But in a lot of these games they've lost, they've run the ball well. They just don't run it enough. They're a little too obsessed with, we got to throw it to Tyreek and Waddle, and that's what we're famous for. But, man, I don't know. When you're rushing for 7 yards per carry, like you did last week against the Baltimore Ravens, and you have some runs in the first half that are ripping off 15 and 20 yards, and then you go 6, 7 plays, 8 plays, a series, 2 series without running the football, yeah, teams start to go, well, we don't believe they'll do it. We'll just keep playing pass defense and worry about Tyreek Hill. And that's one thing I look at them that they can improve or change about their football team to maybe get the looks on defense to open up some of those plays that we talk about and what make them so exciting all the time.
I caught up on Hard Knocks yesterday. I was an episode behind. I watched the 2 most recent ones, and I've been watching now with a more critical eye after you raised the point that – and look, we're not making any conclusions here. We're just having the conversation. There's a toughness, a badassness. There's a in your face. There's something that maybe would serve the Dolphins well.
Yes.
And
right.
You know, I'm not suggesting that Mike McDaniel needs to go around kicking guys in the ass and dragging them around by the face mask and being anyone other than who he is. We've praised him for being so authentic. One of the reasons his authenticity stands out is because he's quirky and he's funny and he's thoughtful and he's loquacious and he's just different. He's just different. But he does not ooze, kick you in the ass, take your lunch money. We're going to bully you on the football field. We're going to use physicality to win games, not finesse.
Right.
He's more finesse than physicality. And there's a time for both.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things as they evaluate themselves as to what they need to do to get over the hump next year, assuming the road ends before the Super Bowl, and it feels like it will after losing 56-19. I think that's something that Mike McDaniel needs to assess and incorporate into his team. Now, some of the Hard Knock scenes have included meetings with assistant coaches who give a little more of that energy and that, football is ultimately a physical confrontation with the man across from you vibe.
Right.
I just feel like the Dolphins need more of that.
I'm with you.
And I agree with
Yeah.
I'm paying much more attention to that now after you made that point.
Yeah, it just again, hey, growing up in a locker room, right? Of course, playing myself, I've got great respect for what they do down there, and certainly have loved, the turnaround as far as what Mike McDaniel's brought to that offense, and a fresh new vibe to the Miami Dolphins, and of course his magical ways of getting people open and designing cool plays it's really cool. But as we've seen this year, right? I mean, with the losses, what are all the losses have in common? It's kind of the gritty, tough, physical team that they go, oh, wait, this isn't going to be a track meet and high five. Like, we're going to be in the phone box and we're just going to punch and fight right here, right? And then it doesn't go so well in those type of matchups with the Miami Dolphins. You talk about the Chiefs, their defense, they can kind of do that. The Eagles, we know they're big and physical everywhere. The Titans, Buffalo the first time around, of course the Ravens last week. So there's an element there that, between watching them on the field and then watching the show itself, where, they could maybe be a little more uncomfortable in that building, right? The teams that I've been around and evaluated or watched or even know that are really successful, right? It's not always like so fun and positive and happy all the time. I think if you went in New England in the prime, or you go into the 49ers right now, right, or a big week, a week where they're not, sitting players, John Harbaugh with the Ravens, like it's not always smiles and laughs. It's a little uncomfortable and a little like, oh, man, we got to play better this week and we got to be tougher, let alone I think the TV and film show, like they don't have like what you're saying, that reckless, hard-ass, like fly around, we'll just knock your head off no matter what, like the 49ers, the Ravens, some of the other teams we've talked about during the year.
And again, every team that isn't where it wants to be engages in that process of identifying the weaknesses and addressing them, and we'll see how much the Dolphins can address that from 2023 to 2024 based on how things end this year. And I'm not saying they're done.
No.
I'm not saying it's over.
Nah, they're scary still.
56-19.
Yeah.
56-19.
Right.
On December 31.
Right.
So close to the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, look, they beat the Dolphins 70-20 in week 3. You take one like that just before the postseason. It's going to be hard to get people to believe, and it's going to be hard to get people in the building to believe. I think it's hard to come back from that. It's a slower process to come back from that kind of an outcome. I'm not saying they can't. They just don't have a whole lot of time to turn it around after what happened on Sunday. All right, the Bills have turned it around.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, I think you're right about that. We kind of hit that when the Cowboys lost to the Buffalo Bills a few weeks ago, right? You just don't see teams that make deep run in the playoffs or get to the Super Bowl that lose by 21 or 37 or whatever. It's really rare. I can't think of a team that made it to the AFC championship game at any time in recent history that just even got to the AFC championship game or the NFC championship game and lost a game in that fashion late in the year, right? So, I mean, I think your point is real, let alone now there's no Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard's hurt a little bit, right? Jalen Waddle's battling something. So, they got a few issues here as they're kind of limping into the playoffs against Buffalo this weekend.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.